Welcome back. So, here is our second training about how do I capture my story? Big part of the process. So, I'm excited to share this with you this morning. Here we go. Why story? Bottom line is that people connect with story. What's your story? Why is it that you have this desire to share your story in the first place? Because people remember stories. We're actually wired for it. It's really true. We're storytellers at our heart. We love to listen to a good story. It's our connection. So, if you read in a good book, who taught stories? Well, in the Bible, it is filled with stories, with parables, with these connections because they're relatable. They help us to connect, to understand, to learn a lesson. So good books are able to provide good stories, and if you want yourself to write a great book, that's how you'll connect too. You want to list your stories in bullet points in the outline. Obviously not in your book, but just to kind of capture and figure out what is it that I want to say here. A good friend of mine, she said, I have my lessons. Here they are. There's 5 of these lessons that I learned. How do I connect with my readers? I said, well, what are the stories that go with those lessons? Boom. She just took off. She listed out what those stories were, and they were 15 stories to go with those 5 points. So she had 3 stories per point. Boy, did that flesh out her book, and it connected with the readers. So that idea is in the bullet points of your outline, know what story you're going to share from your experience, from somebody else's life, whatever it is, how are you going to connect that lesson learned with that story? Okay. There's a fiction side of things and there's a nonfiction side of things. And within those two genres, you've got categories. That doesn't matter. The point is, if you're writing fiction, please develop your character, your plot, your hero's journey, right? Where they started, or they fall into, who's there to help them, not help them, sacrifices they do, they get up to the top and back. Yeah, we'll talk about hero's journey. But you want to keep your readers guessing what's next, what's next. It leads them on, it pulls them in. It's another hook. Now, nonfiction. You want to develop your story. You want to connect with um, their experiences, another hero's journey. Keep your readers guessing. Very similar. If you have stories that have character within them and they're not um, fictional, they're real stories, still develop that character. Still understand how you're going to connect with that person and their experience. Why stories? Connecting emotionally with the reader will continue for people to return to your product. Okay, so how many of you have read through an amazing book and you just are filled, you want to go and share with everybody what you learned, what you felt, why it's so good, right? It's because of the emotional connection. And when you're out there sharing it, other people are now reading it. Your product, your book, your service, your coaches, whatever it is, it's just going out there like crazy because you connected with them emotionally. It's kind of a fun little picture there. Okay, here is a story, a little vignette from my life, and I'll share it with you. This is called Scorching the Shame. One step at a time towards my light, I looked at the soft light in the night light as I kissed the faces of my 5 children on that Christmas night. All were sleeping, all were safe, all was well. I turned, stepped into the hall, placed one foot on the first step. free from abuse. Step. Free from darkness. Step. Free from fear. Step. Strong in the light. Step. I can do hard things. Step. My Heavenly Father never left me. Step. All of us have shelter. Step. We have food. Step. I have a job. Step. I'm aware of the shame shadow. Step. When he tries to scream out and be shrill, I don't feel my light go out. Step. I found myself at the top of the landing of the stairs and smiled. I looked through the Christmas tree and all the pinpoints of light, and I thought, I follow those small lights. It led me out of the darkest abuse. I felt I was reborn that night as I stood at the top of the stairs. I looked again at the lights, and I felt love sweep over me. I felt warm inside. I could feel my light dance. I smiled deep in my loving smile. We had overcome so much. I found my feet carrying me towards the tree, and I touched each gentle light. Each one seemed to be a victory free from anorexia, free from abuse, free from self-injury, free from doubt, from poverty, from homelessness, from mental illness, from domestic violence, from fear, from shame. I understood the shame and how it worked, and I used it as a guide when I felt it. I acknowledged it, breathed through it. Steps, pinpoints of light, decisions. All was well. See how we went through that? You probably experienced different things. Maybe visually you could see her making the steps up. That's what I mean by story. How can you make the impact? Short, but clear, got good description happening, those ideas. Cool? All right. We're going into part 3, which is all of the brainstorming and mind mapping and then asking questions. Don't be afraid. It's not necessarily English class. At least I hope it's not the pain or the fear of English class. Come with me. Let's go to our part 3 training.